Welcome to Let's Accelerate. Today we have Miri and Nora. We are Bosch Management Consulting. Actually, all of us in this case. Sara and I are on the Bosch Accelerator team, and maybe Miri and Nora, you can tell us what exactly you do in Bosch Management Consulting.
Yeah, thanks for having us today. So I'm working in the BMC INS team. I came from PT and TT and did there a lot of digitalization. And now I'm in the Bosch Management Consulting in the ARR team.
Mm-hmm.
So am I. I'm also part of the ARR team. And in my previous life, I used to be with BSH, and there I supported all kind of innovative streams as well as production in India.
Okay, great. So jumping in directly to the first question, what is ARR and a few examples?
So ARR means annual recurring revenue. It's typically service revenue, but it can also be hardware. And the important part is that it's coming back again. So reoccurring revenue, which is stable, plannable. And the importance is that, for example, if you have a contract or a subscription that would fulfill this definition, that it will come back for a longer period than 1 year. This is why we name it annual recurring revenue. And a typical example that most of us probably use is Netflix or a telephone contract. But we also have it in mobility. If you have a flat rate on using some vehicles, they have it with Porsche, but you also have it at Stadtmobil here in Germany.
Mm-hmm. Nora, do we have any examples inside Bosch as well?
Sure. So within Bosch, you might have service contracts, right? Where our partners contract us out for a duration of time. Or we say you pay by call, maybe by incident, right?
Mm-hmm.
More modern approach. We also have a little few tries at BSH. One is currently very big in the news. It's called Blue Movement. Mm-hmm. It's a project within the Netherlands, and you can lease out our appliances. So instead of purchasing a washing machine or a dryer, you can just rent it. So Miriam and I both knew in our prior jobs it would only be temporary. Mm-hmm. So it would have been ideal for us to have a solution like that. Simply, we knew it would come to an end, so purchasing might not have been the best option. But since it didn't exist, we did purchase.
So I think, as we all know on this call, Bosch has been a very successful company for a very long time, running from a supplier position in most cases. I know PT and BSH is a little bit different manifestation of that sort of business, but hardware, components, selling at volume. Why should Bosch, particularly today, given the difficult position we're in, the difficult market conditions, why should Bosch go down this path today? Why is now the right time to start looking at ARR? What is the advantage of doing this?
If you know today what or how much money you have available to spend next year, you might do business planning a bit differently, or you might look at spendings a bit differently. And if there is an economic crisis, the hit is not going to hit you as severely as if when everybody just pushes a stop button, right? So this year and last year, basically when we went into lockdown, everything came to a stop. And if you have contracts with a duration and a minimum fee, in example, you still can cover some sort of base cost, right?
So it's protection against fluctuations in market conditions and business.
Yeah, it cushions you. It gives you a bit of a cushion, a bit of a buffer to, and you don't have to panic as quickly.
Mm-hmm. So, do you think we are ready now already to start immediately, or will this take some time to really implement?
It will definitely take some time, but I do think we really have to go for it. because what we talked about before was one reason. It's an internal reason. It's our own motivation to have discussion. But there are also external reasons. Yeah? The market is going in that direction. Services are getting more important. We are abandoning personal ownership and are more focused on using things as opposed to owning things. So I think there's no alternative in going in that direction. And it's also the best way to come out of this crisis. Also in the financial crisis, those companies recovered the best that invested during the crisis. So it's the right time now.
So it's interesting. I think one of the things we spend thinking about in our accelerator program is what is the actual value for the customer of moving to ARR. And one of the things I'm thinking about is, doesn't ARR imply maybe a different value for our customers as well? And maybe it implies another business model or even a different business overall. What are your thoughts on those things I was just going over?
I think it's right that it requires a different model, because you still look at the customer with ARR. It's very customer centric if you want to build up an ARR model, but you look differently at the customer. You focus much more on the lifetime of the customer. Yeah, if you create a product, you sell it and you forget it. Yeah, maybe you want to avoid warranty costs or something like that. But still, once you sold it, that was your success. With ARR, we really focus on customer loyalty, binding the customers and creating as much value as we can over the lifetime, and even maybe enhancing the value proposition during the lifetime, because this is possible as well.
So it's like creating a lock-in effect for your business, right? So you get much closer to your customer to learn about what they might want next. You can do more user research on them, capture data. It could be an avenue to creating more database business models in the end as well.
And I'm interested to know, Nora, what will be then the preconditions, Nora, to really do this, to really lock the customers in with this ARR strategy?
Well, it depends on which we differentiate between two paths. So one path is building on our current products, anything that is hardware related. It's currently what we do best. And we call it the installed base. So if you know where your installed base is and how it is being used, how it's performing, you can utilize first that data to either do preventive maintenance rather than waiting until something breaks down, right? You know, okay, after an X amount of cycles, one should come in and have a look. And then it's much better to plan something ahead rather than to have to deal with a breakdown, at least in any factory situation.
What is the advantage of that for the customer, what you just said?
Well, if the customer can schedule maintenance, he always schedules maintenance time slots, right? So an example, on Sundays, our dishwasher factories are being maintained. And you know, okay, on that Sunday, XY machines are very close to the cycles where we experience breakdowns. Let's have a look, let's service them, rather than waking up on Monday morning and the first thing you have to do is find a service contractor, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. So that predictability on the customer side is really what an ARR model can unlock.
Well, right? Wouldn't you be happy if you knew 2 days before your...
Well, see, I'm American, so I'm probably one of the main reasons Netflix works. I turn on a subscription and I forget I have it, right?
Yeah.
But I assume Bosch customers won't forget they have our sorts of subscriptions or recurring revenue models.
Well, but I'm a Portuguese, and my perspective can also be something different. If I have to save money because there is a crisis, there's the first thing I will do is cut all the subscriptions. So isn't this a risk also, could be a risk also for business in case people just decide to cut what is easier to be cut?
Sure, that's a risk, but you need a diverse portfolio, right? We are no ambassadors for ARR only. Okay. We want a certain share. we also don't want to abandon personal ownership, but we're looking at the trends. And I think if you look at the way people move around, right? So maybe another happy example is you used to have your own bike. You might have had your own scooter, and then you might have had your first own car. Today, I have young kids around me who are allowed to use their parents' car, but who prefer not to, because a car to go gives them the opportunity to just leave it basically anywhere, right? Or they take one of those e-scooters, because parking a car is already a hassle too much, but you still want to be faster than with your feet, and you don't want to ride a bike. So there's so many opportunities around that, that I believe we are moving away from personal ownership, but it will never be without it. The same goes for ARR. We will never be.
It will be an additional customer segment to complement the base customers that Bosch already has.
Yes, and it's also along the lifetime, like Miri mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Along a customer life cycle. The needs might be different, right? When you are a student, you might only have the money to rent or pay per use. And if you're happy, you might be more willing to buy once you can afford it.
And if you think about our ambitions as a company to do AI, IoT, how would ARR fit into such topics?
Into IoT?
IoT and AI, artificial intelligence, businesses.
Yeah, I think it fits very well because I think you mentioned it at the beginning. Is it business about data? And I think most ARR offers will be about data because we want to add value to that life cycle constantly, which means we will be connected to the customer. E.g., if we have a heating system, then we'll know what's going on there during the life cycle. At the moment, those systems are like a submarine for us. Yeah, we have no idea who's operating, how they are operating. With ARR, we are very much depending on being very close to the customer. And this is something that connectivity enables. And with data, we can find out more about the customer, how he uses the machine and what he might like, etc. And we can try things with connected appliances. Yeah, we can deploy a piece of software offering a new feature. And if it doesn't work, we maybe even withdraw it back. This is things we do with IoT.
So Tesla's able to do that with their flash over the air type of stuff. So you're closer to the customer, you know exactly what they want, when they want it, and you can adapt right on the fly.
Yeah. And
this all sounds so easy in theory. And the question I would have is, I'm a Bosch business unit. I'm really interested in doing AR, but I don't know where to start. How can you two help me?
I think the first thing is that you really have to look at what is your portfolio now, and you have not only ARR goals. There is some direction your portfolio is going to develop into. So I think the first thing is really to look in what is there. For example, to see is there an installed base you can use. So, and if there's an installed base, then you might think of in a way that you are very familiar with. You might think of ways to solve problems that are related to that installed base. So, for example, if it breaks down and people freeze at home or they can't do their washing, then you might think of solutions that you can provide to let the customer suffer less or be happier. Yeah, I think you can innovate on the offer side. But yes, it's not easy because it requires a lot of changes in your company. Yeah? A device that was not connected before, if you want to build this up, it requires new knowledge, new processes. It requires adaptations in the IT system. At the moment, we are having a hard time of even booking those revenues of subscriptions, for example. It's not easy, of course. But it all starts with a value proposition. So you have to think about where's my product in, what is the surrounding of the product, how is it used, how is it adding value, and how can I improve it? Yeah. over the lifetime.
And how can you two, Nora and Miri, drive this ARR topic in our organization? What will be your next steps? Yeah.
We've set up a Bosch community within Bosch Connect. We're trying to pull together as much material as we have. We are currently working on our second scribble, which means our first scribble is available on Bosch Tube, because we are aware that it's a highly theoretical topic. It is not easy to digest, and it also challenges all of us in a very different way. I mean, the two of you know also very well from your daily lives that suddenly changing the thinking and saying the customer comes first and not what kind of cool technology could we develop is still sometimes groundbreaking thought. So
it's difficult. I think people know that. I think it's not sort of rocket science that you need a customer and you need to have a value proposition. I think it's rather what, Miri, you were talking about, is the implications of accepting that I might have to fundamentally change the way I think about and do business for a business that I know very well, right? That I've been running for 10 years and I'm an expert. I know my customers, I know my networks, I know how this business operates. And now you're asking me to do something that's also a mindset change, if you think about it, right?
So it's also, until you have understood your customer and the value proposition, right? Having a little proof of concept in your hand, right? A little technical thumbling is so much more exciting than putting posters on the business model canvas. Mm-hmm. For some people, for us, obviously, we love posters.
So what would success look like? Let's say 5 years, 10 years from now. What would success look like for you two?
I think that we have to see that in steps. For the short term, my goal would be that really people in the business units, they really understand the topics and they hand in projects they want to set up in order to go into that direction. So in the next 5 years, I would expect we work in big projects doing really fundamental change.
Nora, any final thoughts there?
I would like it if the ARR specific goals were to become as well known as our CO2 goal. So all of us know, I bring up that example every time I talk. I say, everybody within Bosch knows 2020, no matter what, how we're going to do it, but we will be CO2 neutral. And for people to have the ARR goals in their brains, ingrained like that, I think would be really first cool step, because that means we have all at least heard the goal, and then we can start talking about how we're going to reach it.
Great. So thank you so much. I think this was a great ending of our podcast. Thank you, Nora and Miriam, for joining us. Thank you again. That was our Let's Accelerate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.